Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is David Howard. I am the chair of the theater department, and this evening is the last of our 3 fall conversation series that we call uh, Big Ideas in Small Rooms, or as I've changed it to Big Ideas in Small Zooms. Um, and tonight we're very lucky to have 2, well, I was going to say 2 faculty, but also people who went to the University of Rhode Island, in the case of Andrew, being here for 4 years, but Alexis, which I was completely embarrassed about, but then I realized that I had an excuse because I was on sabbatical that semester. But Alexis, you were with us for 1 semester or 2 semesters?
Yeah, 2 semesters, 1 whole year.
1 whole year.
Yes.
So not only do we have distinguished alumni in a sense, but also luckily enough, they're both teaching for us this year, and they've been kind enough to come this evening to discuss a little bit about the world of acting in the environment that we're living in. And so I'd like to introduce, oh, I got to do it the opposite way. Andrew. All right, Andrew is this side. Andrew Burnap, who many of you know from acting class and such. And also, sorry, I'm never going to be a YouTuber, Alexis, who is also teaching, both of them are teaching the Introduction to Acting. And next semester, Alexis will be teaching 112, and Andrew will be teaching 212. So they're going to be with us for another semester. So if you don't like something they say, you can give them a sock second semester. But we wanted, again, thank you all for coming. And we just want to enjoy the evening of the conversation between the 2 of you. So I'm going to step away and take it away.
Hi, Alexis. How you doing?
Hey, Andrew. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Just hanging out in parents' house. Where are you these days?
I am in my little baby apartment in Warren, Rhode Island, all by myself.
Oh, come on. But it looks like you got some fun background behind you.
Yes, I decided to showcase my little janky self-tape area just for this conversation.
Janky is the name of the game when it
Yes.
comes to digital theater, is it not?
That is exactly what it is. But I will say the one positive thing that I think is important to share with everybody is that luckily, because we're all at home, I think it has really opened the doors for people who wouldn't normally get seen for things to be seen for things. So
Yeah,
as janky as it is, everybody's got something janky. So we're kind of
totally.
the playing field is getting slightly leveled a little bit in that sense.
Yes, totally. And I also think while the circumstances we find ourselves in and trying to act aren't even close to the best, this sort of nationwide, really global pause has forced us to look at a lot of the inner workings of both the theater and television and film and question a lot of the things that need to be questioned, get rid of a lot of the things that need to be gotten rid of. And I think new leaders are rising to the occasion. That is very hopeful, I think, for the future of theater, not only just acting, but theater in general. How many self-tapes would you say you've had to do over the pandemic?
Oh my God. I have a book that I keep track of most of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. But I would say that from March 17th, which is like the first day that I had started isolating or whatever in Rhode Island, I have probably done, I would say like 160 tapes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, because the bulk of the tapes that I'm getting, due to the way that my agent sort of works, is I'm doing a lot of commercial stuff, and
Oh, yeah.
the commercial stuff hasn't really gone on pause in the way theater and film and TV have gone. So
Sure.
there were weeks where it was not uncommon for me to have 5 or 6 commercial tapes due in 1 week.
And do you have to be off book for those?
Yeah, so those vary. So for the commercials, a lot of the stuff that's happening right now in commercial work, a lot of it is improv,
Yep.
which I feel some kind of way about, because I think a lot of these times, when these writers for these commercial projects write their scripts, the writing is really awful. So
Mhm.
they're like, we want to see actors improvise. And then you're like sitting on the couch 6 months later, and like a yogurt commercial is literally saying what you did in your
What you
improv.
did. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's terrible.
Yep, yep, yep. But
Oh.
what's going on with you in your self-tape life?
Also, I don't know if I've done that many. I think I can safely say I've done maybe about like 60 of them so far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and most of mine have been for TV and film. Obviously, theater, for the most part, unless theaters are potentially casting for far down the line, a lot of theater auditions are just not happening at all.
Yeah.
Um, and so the film and TV ones that I've been doing, I would say 70% of them are what I refer to as lottery tickets, which are everyone is available for this project that is most likely going to go straight to offer of someone famous.
Yep,
And I am simply going to make this tape so that the casting director knows my work and will possibly think of me for a later date.
definitely.
So, and I think that's a really useful thing to pause on, is that a lot of most of our jobs as actors our jobs are auditions.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of, I think I graduated from URI and then grad school with the assumption that doing a play is the job, or doing a movie is the job, or a TV show is the job.
Oh, yes.
And
Yep.
it is not at all the job. The job is auditioning. And thinking of each audition as an opportunity to act
Yeah.
completely changed my perspective on being an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And so while a lot of these self tapes you look at and go, yeah, i'm not I'm not gonna play the villain in the next Marvel movie in any world, so why
Yep.
I'm auditioning for this, I have no idea. But if you
Mm-hmm.
think of it as a means of, okay, I get to act today for something, then it starts to be a little less of staring into the void and a little bit more hopefulness. So of the 60 self tapes that I've done, that's how I've started to try and choose to think of them.
Yes.
Um, and I hope that the people listening can get a little bit more ahead of where I was when I graduated. Did you feel the same way when you left school?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I definitely was in the same. I had before I had graduated, I had started going into the city and auditioning before graduating. So I think that that kind of gave me a bit of a perspective, in the sense that like I knew that that was going to be part of the job, but I didn't anticipate that, the very real reality, and the thing that I think everybody is experiencing with the pause is that you can go a really long time where you're just auditioning and
Mm,
not booking anything,
mm,
you know? Um, and so I think when you're first out of school and that's sort of happening, like when you're auditioning and auditioning and auditioning, and you're like, you feel betrayed. You're like, what is this? This is not what I signed up for. Why do I have to make small talk in the room with these people? Why are these other actors? Why does everybody in the waiting room look like me? What is
yeah,
going
and
on?
they're all better looking than they're just like a better version of me.
Yes, they're
Why
like
is
the
this
model
happening?
version. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yep.
totally.
Hmm.
And I I think that is, I mean, that's true of any even in the normal world, that is true of that. It's the life of an actor is being told no 90% of the time,
Yes.
and you're waiting for that one yes, and then that yes gives you 16 weeks of health insurance and money and ability to pay your rent, and then you're right back into the world of being told no and waiting for that yes again.
Hmm.
And I think would you say that it's that now that you're mostly self-taping as the initial round of your audition, Does
Mhm.
that add to the stress or lessen the stress for you?
I think for me, it's done both in the sense that, and I think too, and I feel like I don't know, I feel like we might feel similarly on this. Like, obviously it's been a long time since we've been in the room together doing theater, but I feel like you and I are similar in the sense that, like, I feel like I can go into a space and, like, be in the space, own the space, like, take up the room.
Yes,
Um, and I feel like that, like, almost like, my presence sometimes is what gets me the job.
100%.
So when I don't have the opportunity to walk in the room and change the molecules in the room, make it my room, I was really scared about that at first, like, how am I going to do that? They're going to watch 3 seconds of this tape and decide to either keep watching or to go to the other 25 they're going to watch for these 2 lines on this TV show that I want.
Totally, totally, totally.
Yeah.
How would you say, have you found, it's a difficult thing, but have you found a way to sort of transcribe that essence, to use your phrase, changing the molecules in the room onto a self tape? Have you
Yeah,
found ways to do that?
yeah, and I think it actually kind of goes back to what you were saying about, like, oh, I'm not going to be the Marvel villain in the next, like, I don't know, Iron Man or whatever's
Sure.
being made. And I've been getting a lot of that too. Like, just last week, there's a Showtime show that's coming to Boston, and the role was like, and this is how you know when they're casting a wide net. It's like female, all ethnicities, 30s to 50s, school principal. And I'm like, 30 to 50, I barely get called in to play 30. Like, why
Sure,
am I
sure.
yeah, why am I being called in for this? But I think our sometimes our instinct as actors is like, oh, okay, I have to, like, become that person that they want to see. And it's like, no, 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 no. That's not going to serve me. I'm going to do, like, what this role would be like if it were me,
Mm.
and not like this sort of mature or, like, stern thing that you might think initially, oh, that's what the character is. I feel like the way that I take command of the tape is by just inserting my essence into it rather than becoming what you think the person wants to see.
Yeah, totally. That makes total sense to me. I mean, I think that also we talk a little bit in class about, um, getting it right versus being a human, right? So no, there, there's no, there is no fruitfulness to the phrase, did I get it right?
Mhm,
If you are trying to do a tape right, you are robbing yourself of every unusual and interesting thing that you could possibly do in the moment.
mhm,
So, I think that lesson of bringing the role to you rather than you trying to go to the role, especially in tapes, is huge. I've
mhm,
also found that, um, and I think what you said is so right, and that a lot of my strengths as an actor is the energy that I give off in the room. So, the work is absolutely the work. And in a perfect world, I wish everything could be just about the work. And I think you could look back at the Oscar wins of many, many years and say, I don't know if that was just about the work. But anyway, we won't go there. I, I think, yeah, being in the room is a huge part of being an actor. One, is this person, do I want to spend 3 months with this person rehearsing a play?
mhm, mhm.
Is this person someone who can take notes and not take it personally? Is
Yep.
this someone who is malleable enough that if I don't really sure they're making strong choices and that's exactly what I want in an actor, can I guide them to where I think the role might be as a director or whatever, what have you?
Mhm.
Those are all huge parts of landing a job. And so I have found, um, um, I have found that, I just laughed at something in the chat. I have
Yeah, that's
found
Katya.
that, they're asking me to go there and I can't go there right now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I found that, that the slate is an opportunity to really show who you are. So for those listening who don't know what the slate is, usually with a self tape, you're asked to say your name, give a full body shot, which is toes to head, and ask to say what your name is, where you're from, Sometimes they'll ask you what your height is.
Hmm.
Sometimes they'll ask you what pronoun you prefer, how you identify. And so usually in that, that's where I try to show a little bit of who I am. Maybe I'll throw in a joke or something here and there. Sometimes I'll get it sent back from my team being like, just do a regular slate. Please don't try, whatever, which is good. But I always say, try it. Do whatever is going to make you stand out from the pack, really, other than the brilliance of your work, I think is helpful, especially with these tapes. I mean, I think, and just so I had a conversation with my reps the other day, and they think that for the foreseeable future, self tapes will be the first round of auditions for
Yes.
most things. Have you find that to be true too on your end?
Yeah, even on like both coasts, like I've been trying to get representation on the West Coast, and so I've been speaking with a few different managers, and that's what everyone is saying. They're like, I mean, it's getting to the point where a lot of people are saying at this point it doesn't even matter where you're based.
Right.
Like you can be in Oklahoma and submit for something in Los Angeles. You can be
Yeah.
in Kentucky and submit for something in New York. um yeah, so I think it's this kind of thing where, if you haven't adapted yet to the world of self tapes, and it's happening for theater and TV and film, you need to kind of get the ball rolling, because it is looking like it's going to be like this for, I would say, the next 1 or 2 years, or even so many agencies in New York and LA. They're selling their buildings. They're like,
Yeah.
great, I'm not paying this rent for my office anymore.
Totally.
Producers aren't paying office fees. It's like, a casting director will get like 60K from a producer to cast the movie and pay an office fee and pay for the casting assistant, and
Right.
all of
Right.
that is kind of going out the window.
Totally, totally. And I think every decade there seems to be a sort of industry shift towards something. And I think the last one um to speak to is that, all of a sudden, whether you lived in New York or Los Angeles or even Chicago, you were seen for things in all the major cities because all of a sudden self-taping became this major thing.
Hmm.
And now you don't even have to live in a major city, and you can be we are we're in the midst of a massive shift. So even this conversation, I imagine in 3 months this conversation will sound dated, because
Yeah.
there will be some sort of development, there will be some sort of new industry norm that we're unaware of right now that will become practice. And I don't know what that is. It's exciting but also quite anxiety producing,
Yep.
because I don't know if I go back to the city, do I stay, do I go in the, what do I do, where do I go, what about my agents, what about my reps, if I don't have an agent, do I get an agent? I mean, all of that stuff has to be figured out slowly but surely. um,
Mhm.
but in terms of, so you get a self tape, what's the first thing that you do when you get that self tape?
First thing I do when I get that self tape is I read the instructions. Okay.
Instructions.
I read the instructions twice because I'm very
Love it.
ADD, and like you said, even the slate, there can be so much variation in what they're asking from you just with the slate.
Yes. Yep.
And if you don't get it, there are so many casting directors out here that are like, if you don't do my slate right, I'm not watching the tape.
Off. Yep. Not even looking at the audition.
Nope.
They don't have
So
time for it.
read the instructions. I do that, and then I, like I told you, I have a book, right? So I'll write in my book, casting director, producer, whoever's attached to it, because I like to keep track of the offices that keep calling me in.
Yes.
So I do that, and then I look at the sides and I read them over. I look at the due date. I write it down because, like I told you, there were weeks where I was having like 7 tapes due at once, and I literally would be confused and be like, okay, I gotta we transfer this at 3 o'clock and da da da. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
write everything down. That is the first step,
Yes.
um, to keep track of all of that. And then I do a little research too, especially for the theater and TV stuff. Like if it's a tape for like the 2021-2022 season of a theater, I'll go and I'll look at what they've been doing for the past few seasons to try to get a feel of like the vibe.
Great.
Um, or even if it's like there's this new Showtime show coming to Boston, and I couldn't find any info on it, so I like went and looked at the director's work to see what they had been working on.
Mm.
So I my first thing is organizational, definitely, when it comes to the tape, is just to get all the information you need before you even go to put your work on tape.
Yes. Map it all out. Get it all out from your mind and onto a piece of paper. That's
Mhm.
amazing. And does your process change if, say, you get a commercial audition versus film and TV versus theater? And how are those things all different for you?
Yeah, the commercial ones, I mean, I'll be honest, like those I kind of just I it's so bad to
You just
say.
gotta wing it, right?
Yeah, I wing it, I phone it in. I'm like, they just literally want I don't even like see that as acting. Like I'm like, this is
Totally.
a great chance for me to make some money to get
Yes.
through. Let me just throw this on tape, and just make sure whatever it is, I'm being friendly, approachable, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, the TV and film stuff, um, that is kind of what takes me the longest. Because we have to figure out, you know, eye line and getting a reader
Mhm.
and all of that stuff. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's the acting stuff is the same. I'm going through my beats. I'm figuring out what I want from this person. But the thing that's tricky about TV and film, and I'm sure you've seen this too, is it's like you have to realize, are you someone here that's having a story and having a moment, or are you literally moving the plot along because
Totally. Totally.
you're like, "Oh, you want cream with that coffee?" Like, if you're that girl, you want cream with the coffee, just
Yes.
keep it moving. It's another
Yes.
Tuesday. Say the line, goodbye. Like, you don't
Totally.
no need to make that profound.
Totally. Yes. No one wants to watch the barista that's handing the coffee go into an existential crisis. That's just not what the filmmakers want, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's great. What function does this role serve if it is a sort of a plot moving device, right?
Mhm.
That's amazing. And in terms of memorization, do you have a sort of like got to be fully memorized for everything? Depends on the project. What's your story with that?
Oh man, I am one of these people that I like to be fully memorized. I think it's important for me in the sense that, like, if I'm gonna make choices and vary up the tape, um,
Okay.
I need to be completely off book,
Yep.
to do that. But sometimes you do get these tapes where it's like, four pages of text, and your agent sends it to you on Thursday, and it's due Friday, and you're like, I'm gonna tape the sides to my wall and manipulate the
Well
eye
done.
line so that it looks
Well
like.
done.
Yeah. I mean, what are you doing? Are you being totally off book for these two, or?
If I can be totally off book, I will be.
Mhm.
I think a phrase that we always use in class is preparation is freedom. And I think that the more prepared you are in any audition, interview, anything, the greater play, the greater the play.
Mhm.
And so I try to be off book if I can. And now it's funny that you say that taping the lines up to the wall. If I have, I think a big question that I first had is so I've just gotten 3 self tapes, 2 are due tomorrow and 1's due the next day. So
Mhm.
then, in terms of your organization, I think what's great is that, okay, I usually map out when I'm going to do them.
Yep.
I have to give myself a deadline. If any of my former teachers are watching right now, they know I need a firm deadline. So if I don't have that, if I don't give that for myself, I will leave it to the last minute in every aspect of my life. So working on it in therapy as well. So I think so that's the first thing. If it is like I I I won't tell you what the project was, but I got a self tape with, I kid you not, 19 pages of sides in a high British accent that was due in
Oh,
3 days. So you say 19 pages of sides. That's at least that's at least 8 hours worth of memorization for me. That's I have to give 8 hours of memorization and accent work. That's 8 hours out the window of just doing work on the text. And to be able to sit down for 8 hours in any one day would be a blessing. So you have to space that out. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll make these big like cue cards almost, and
Yep.
I will put them up, and so that it looks like I'm thinking. Actually doing is reading the lines from the script. And then you go back and you look and you say, I can't use that take because it really looked like I was reading.
Yeah,
Or you say,
yeah,
wow, I did a good job of making that seem like it was actually, I was coming up with it in the moment. So you come up with little tricks along the way, right?
yeah.
I would say the biggest pet peeve that has come back to me in terms of watching self tapes for people is lighting. Lighting is the biggest thing that either drives people crazy or makes people watch your tape.
Yep.
I started out with just I usually try to go with natural lighting as much as possible, but
Yeah.
when I can't, I have a very inexpensive setup of lights that I'll put in the chat before we end tonight. That I think are just, it's my go-to thing where and that way I have my things set up, or if I'm away and need my like go-to version, I can quickly do it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What stuff do you tend to use?
Yeah, so I have so many things. Okay. So um in it for people, I know this is going to be audio when people go back and listen to it, but the industry standard for these self tapes is a blue back, like curtain backdrop, right? That's like what everybody's using, which is behind my purpley one.
Uh-huh.
um so I have three backdrops. I have the blue, I have the gray, those are cloth. And yes, I do steam them. I
You
have
have to steam
had,
them. You have to steam them.
you do, especially with the lighting thing, because there will be shadow, and
Yes.
your agents, your reps will send the tape back and be like,
Yep.
you need to iron that. Yeah, just another beautiful thing we have to deal with. Then,
Yay.
but what's been a game changer is this purple collapsible backdrop, because it doesn't need to be ironed or steamed.
It looks great, and it also looks like it has cool texture to it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the moon. It's like
Yeah, which
cratery.
I am a fan of. I know that there's ranging opinions from casting directors and what have you, whatnot, of,
Mhm.
but I have noticed that the best tapes that I've seen tend to have some sort of texture on their background, like that purple one. It really pops the person out in front. I mean, there
Yeah.
have been, it's sometimes the blue is also, everyone uses it and it's great and perfect, but I'm a fan of mixing it up.
Yeah, I need to mix it up. And also, too, it's like some people, your skin tone, your hair doesn't look good with that blue. So I'm
Totally.
like, purple looks great. So I do that. Then, also, too, for people, I am always filming my tapes on my iPhone. How do you film yours?
Yes, I always film on my iPhone. Yep.
Yeah. So whatever smartphone you have, that is totally, totally enough. And then I have various ring lights with the different lighting settings where it's different levels and different types of light. But again, like Andrew said, natural light really is your best friend. But sometimes you get home at 7 o'clock and you have to do a tape at night. You got to make it work.
Yep.
This is the thing that I think is the game changer when it comes to the light, is that I backlight myself with an LED light. So what I
Need
do
it.
is I put the light either behind my body or my chair facing the backdrop, and then that will eliminate any sort of weird shadow, and it helps you to not look as washed out. And then the
Yes.
other thing too, like Andrew said, I'm going to send to David when this is over a document I have of various price points of where you can get these things, because we know don't everybody got money to be spending on this stuff.
Yes.
Um,
Totally.
yeah, so that's
Totally.
my basic setup.
I love. I think that's awesome. I use the 3-point lighting system as well. So backlight, side to front light, kind of front on the side,
Hmm.
super side light, and then backlight. And it's just the easiest way to get rid of all the weird shadow and I tend to get very washed out in the front. So sometimes I will wear some sort of makeup or take some oil off my face. I mean, the little things do make the difference. You find
Yeah.
that's true?
The oil, yes. No, I'm shiny. I'm so shiny. I gotta blot my face, like for real,
No,
because then I'm just looking at the shine the whole time when I watch the tape.
I know, and you know that the casting director is doing the same thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
could just hear the casting director being like, "Well, why didn't he get rid of his damn shine on his
Yeah. Why
forehead that's
didn't
the
he just
size
put
of
some powder?
Arizona?"
Mm.
Um, but yeah. So the how do you do this with a reader during the pandemic?
Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, so I have a few friends that are kind of like on speed dial to be my reader. So for all the folks out there that are new to this, you definitely do not want to do that thing where you're like, I'll just not say the other lines or I'll record myself saying the other lines. And I know that sounds ridiculous like to me and Andrew and probably a few of you, but people do this and it's so bad. Please do yourself a favor and don't do that. So I will FaceTime or Zoom with my reader, but I've been finding that doing the Zoom reader creates weird audio and
Oh,
feedback.
interesting.
Yeah, so I try to use I have a I mean, and this other thing too, it's like, goodness, like how many devices do you need to have to get
I
this
know.
stuff done?
I
But
know.
I will FaceTime my reader on like my iPad.
Yes. Okay. I do the same exact thing. I'll do a FaceTime. And I usually try, and if I can't figure it out, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I try to put the computer or iPad in my where the eye line is so
Yep.
that you can actually react to your scene partner. It's
Mhm.
very, very hard to imagine in the moment what they're doing and also try to react to your imagination of what they're doing. So I try to have them in the eye line. Do you try to do that too?
Yeah, I do the same thing, like stacking, like I'm stacking laundry, I'm stacking books, I'm stacking. It's awful. But wait,
Yeah.
because you're home right now. So are you having family members be your reader sometimes?
Okay, so truth be told, I started the pandemic with mom doing the reading,
Yep.
and for all of my mother's infinite wisdom, she is not the greatest reader in the world. I
Mhm.
know this is recorded. Maybe I'll live to regret that statement. The second is I tried my little brother, who is a musician, and he, you know, the amount of super chill cops that he plays, he's very good at the super chill cop. But he can't, there's not much range when it comes to the reader. So I always say I try to not rely on family
Yep.
because it's also one it's also a real trip to do a sort of do a sexy scene with your mom like that. That's really pushing the the comfort level. um so that is difficult. So often I have decided that I'm just going to do it with actors because actors just get it.
Yeah.
um and you got to do a weird scene every once in a while.
Mhm.
So I try to just do it with actors. I likewise have like 3 or 4 people that sort of we trade off doing it with each other. And I think that this is creating sort of a new norm.
Mhm.
I think that this has made it so much easier to do self tapes. And in the normal world, I never even thought of doing a Zoom or a FaceTime reader. And it's so much more doable than having to show up at your friend's apartment or
Yep.
show up at your friend's house or whatever, what have you. You find
Yep.
that's true?
Or yeah, or like I know when I was living in the city, you go to those people that do it for you
Totally.
and you're
Totally.
paying, $30 to be in the
Yes.
room for 10 minutes to
It's
do
so much money. And
yeah.
they really, I mean, there are some studios that are that are great, that are a little bit more expensive, but some of them are just you feel like it's just the most dehumanizing experience in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that is tough. That is tough.
Have you been switching sort of more to theater? Have you been what do we want to say about the Zoom plays, theater on the internet? Like what are you seeing? What are you liking? What do you think is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know for everyone's everyone has been really trying, and I know how frustrating Zoom plays can be. I've been a part of a couple, and they've just been really tough. And Zoom, trying to do a play over Zoom is sort of the antithesis of everything that we do in the theater.
Mhm.
So it's been hard to negotiate that. Um, and it's just been sort of disheartening in a lot of ways. That being said, there are some examples and some people who have really figured out some brilliant ways to bring theater during this time.
Mhm.
There are some examples of plays that I've seen that I think people should check out in terms of what is possible. I should be very transparent in that I have not really given a whole lot of thought or effort to trying to put on a play during this time.
Mhm.
Um, and so my experience with creating digital content other than self tapes is rather limited.
Mhm.
Um, but of the things that I've seen, um, there's a play that was put on a couple weeks ago by some friends of mine called Circle Jerk, which was this amazing play looking at sort of the uh, white gay men and their weaponization in our culture today. And that was just incredible that they used many different cameras and also a bunch of selfie sticks and cameras and just created this incredible world that was so thrilling and gave me so much hope um, for what's possible if we ever incorporate digital theater into the mainstream world. Um, there was a Sims Seagull that I saw, which was a production of the Seagull that took place within the Sims game.
What?
That was incredible. And so that you should absolutely check that out. It was amazing.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and then there was a play that was on at in New York last year, written by a man named Will Arbery called Heroes of the Fourth Turning, which they did a sort of virtual version of the play, which is I find it to be an incredible and very harrowing piece of theater.
Mhm.
Um, and I should say that all three of these were produced by the wonder that is Jeremy O. Harris, who is almost single-handedly, I shouldn't say single-handedly, but almost single-handedly saving the American theater as we know it. So thank you to Jeremy. I
Mhm.
don't think he's listening, but
Yeah.
hope he those are the things that I've seen that have been wildly successful, not only in their innovation, but also their execution of it.
Mhm.
What about you? Have you seen anything worth talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I have also taken part in some Zoom theater things. What I'm finding to be the most successful is helping develop new work. You know, like that's it was really exciting to hear from you about like the seagull and Sims because it's like if I heard like if somebody was like, "Oh, hey girl, they're doing this virtual play of the seagull," I'd be like, "Yeah, no,
No.
no thanks.
Yeah.
Not really my thing." But yeah, I've been there was a show that I workshopped at the beginning of the pandemic that I actually did go back and watch, and it was the writer had graduated from Emerson, and it was like a feminist like sci-fi play where
Nice.
yeah, so it was like the Zoom platform kind of worked because it was like they were on their ship and they're like, um doing stuff like that. So I think this is a really good time to, if you have that play that you're working on, get people together on Zoom and do that. Um, for the most part, there are little things I'm seeing. My friend did a collaboration with the Tank. She was supposed to have a show at the Tank. And they were like, well, you can make something and we'll have it digital. And it was the thing that was hilarious is that it was called like, can you help me with this self tape for a minute? Like that's what her show was gonna be.
That's awesome.
And then it ended up she just filmed it like with a few friends in her apartment, and it got to actually be an even better, like, she got to riff on that topic, I feel like, in a better way because she got to actually do the self-tape thing in what she made. So yeah, I've just
Totally.
kind of been really, I mean, it's my bad because if it's not new and it's being put virtually, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't
I,
really wanna.
I totally get that. I mean, I think it's very hard for us to, we are all people that believe that being in the room where it happens is the thing that keeps us alive, right? It's the lifeblood of all of us. It's why we're studying all this as not only a craft but as a career, that the live experience actively changes your life in that very moment.
Mhm.
And to have that taken away from us, especially in these times of such turmoil in so many different areas, and a time of deep introspection, and we as actors, as artists, as creators, we actively take all of that and we put it on a stage and we try to parse through it emotionally together with an audience, and we are robbed of that variability right now. So putting it on a screen all feels like a betrayal in a way, almost.
Mhm.
Do you feel that way too? I mean, it's so,
Mhm.
I echo your sort of hesitation to watch Zoom plays, because it's hard. If anything, it reminds me of the sort of the tough position we're in.
Yeah. I mean, I have to, I'm directing the last show at CCRI for this season, and it has to be like virtual. So I'm like, trying to figure out it's Monique Morisso's Detroit 67, and I'm like,
Oh my God.
wow, totally a play that should not be done on screen. It's
Totally.
something that people should get to experience in person. But yeah,
Wow.
so we'll see. And I see David's come
Oh.
back.
Hi, David.
Hey. Oh, well,
um, let's chat super quickly, if you
yeah.
don't mind, Alexis, about um the something that I think we want to talk about is the framing of your self tapes per medium. What
Yeah.
do you do? Do you do a different frame for like film and TV versus theater?
Yep. So for TV and film, I'm always, unless it's otherwise stated, shooting in a medium close up. So
Mhm.
shooting like bust, like right below the shoulders to the top of the head, leaving space at the top of the head, obviously. But for
Yep,
theater, because we know that eventually the hope is we will be back in these rooms creating these stories, I try to at least shoot from the hip up so that the director's getting a little bit of body, kind of seeing more movement in the frame.
totally.
um, I'm finding that that is the one of the most important things. But I guess too, from you, we sort of talked about this a little on our own about acting for theater in this box.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's uh, I think as theater makers, our instrument is our entire body and entire voice. So the full use of that is required. And I think in a theater audition, I think you have to treat, if you're going to use this frame as a theater audition, you have to treat this frame as the audience. So you cannot be afraid to use your gestural life. Whereas when you're acting for the camera, it's all right here. So an arch of an eyebrow tells the same amount of information that a large gesture that Brecht wants you to use tells.
Mhm.
So I think um, you know, one of the greatest little things that of advice that was told to me for on camera auditions, so for things that you're auditioning for that will eventually be on camera, is using the frame to your advantage with your physicality. So how do you you hear so many people say to theater actors, "Oh, don't do so much. Do
Mhm.
do less." How the heck do you do less? How do you do less of something? So always, if someone tells you to do less, it means you have to do more of something else. So more of something else to me means, okay, so I'm too wild with my gestures. Okay, so I'm too theatrical. I got the note that you're too theatrical. The greatest sin of any film actor, you're too theatrical. So
Mhm.
what does that mean? So that means, okay, so that means that I now have to distill my physicality. So if I'm using you, Alexis, as my scene partner here, and we're doing a scene and blah blah blah, and you say something that really catches my attention, and the scene, an event takes place, just me squaring my shoulders tells a large amount of information than if I were to start the scene like this with nowhere to go, and then all of a sudden my gestural life goes crazy because I need to put it into something. Whereas then if you just put it into head turn, shoulder turn, that tells an incredible amount of information to the audience. So that taking that and multiplying that little piece of advice to anything that you do in an audition has helped me greatly. Whereas in a theater audition, you don't have to worry about that really because your whole body is engaged, right?
Yep.
So I try to think of it that way, and that if I feel like I'm being too theatrical, it means I'm not distilling things enough. It means I'm not concentrating, focusing my energy enough. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I get told the same thing. So it's a lot. I think too, like the idea of distilling, it's almost like I think of it as like division. Not that I'm a math person, but I'm like, okay, how can I divide this gesture or this movement so that it has the same intention, but I'm literally dividing it. I'm
Yeah,
literally making it smaller. So and the other thing too that I think for us as theater actors, it's funny because it's like I tell my students a lot in class, I'm like, you're so alive from like your waist up, but like, what are your legs doing? On stage, I find that a lot with a lot of young actors, but then it's like you have to think like the other way when you put stuff on screen. You have to make sure that like your shoulders and your like in your cheeks and all of these things are alive because you can't. It's going to read as inherently false when you're doing this
totally,
in the frame.
totally,
Yeah, so
totally.
we're on the same page on that one.
Yes, absolutely. I also, I think as theater actors, we have to, or as actors who also do theater, we have to rebel against the idea that truth has any size. I think for film acting, uh, the camera, thinking of it as the camera picks up everything, an audience member does not.
Mhm.
So for the camera, like distillation, division, I think those are both really great words for understanding that if it's happening inside of you on camera, it's going to be picked up.
Yes.
You don't
Yeah.
have to necessarily show anything whatsoever. But our job as theater artists is to make sure that what we're trying to articulate is articulated for the front row and row Z. You
Yep.
know, so yeah, it's just something to always keep in mind that truth has no size, but there are some mediums that require
Yeah.
smaller,
Mhm.
subtler.
Mhm. Have you read Michael Caine's Acting in Film?
Oh, of course.
Yes, that's the one. I mean, that's like exactly what he says, what you said, which is like the camera is your best friend. She tells no lies and she sees everything. And it's the idea too that like you have to remember in the audition room and in your tape, like these people, they want you to be the
They
answer.
want you to be it. I'm so glad you said that.
They want you. So know that they want you to be the one that's perfect or the one that changes their mind about what they thought it was. And if you know that the camera is picking up on everything and it is your best friend and it loves you, then it's kind of like how can you go wrong?
Totally. Totally. Yeah, that's also one of the best pieces of advice ever for auditioning is that everyone, when you walk into that room, everyone in that room, including you, wants this to go well.
Yep.
It's so true.
I could listen to the two of you go on forever, but we're starting to run out of a little bit of time, and I want to make sure to ask a few questions. And if anybody has a question down in the chat, please feel free. And some of them are just things I wanted to jump in. One of the things I found to be a really interesting use, and this was way back in March, was Michael Urie's Buyer and Seller.
Yeah.
Did you get a
Oh
chance to see that?
yeah.
Oh, of course. I can't believe I didn't mention
No,
that.
he just set up in his apartment two cameras
Yeah.
and just started doing the play. And I mean, he's done it a million times, so he knows it, but I found it technically, it wasn't great, but it was something. It felt like an event,
Yes.
and I thought it was really great. And talking about lights and investment in things, um, I actually, because we're on camera now all the time,
Yeah.
and I totally went YouTuber and I got a ring light, but only reason was because it was one of those things that was marked down one day,
Yep.
in some holiday deal, and I
Right.
got it for like $8.
Yeah.
And so it's not great. It's something. I also got like one of these like LED things
Yes.
Yeah.
that again, it can save your life. And it was like $5 or something like that. They have flashlights you can get at Harbor Freight for free with a coupon. So
Yeah.
Yes. No, Home Depot, like Lowe's, those places are your friends for lighting because they will oftentimes be cheaper than like trying to buy it like on Amazon or eBay because
yeah,
Right.
the other thing too is that those things are starting to notice that actors are home and buying all this stuff so the prices are going up, but at like the hardware stores they're not.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. Totally.
yeah.
and then the last thing, is there any specific to say computer programs makes it sound like it's 1987 and we're working with floppy disks, but is there any software that you feel is necessary to have to really prep that material to go forward?
Hmm.
Or
I
or is just filming on your iPhone and sending that video forward good?
iMovie works great for me in terms of cutting scenes or having to play with audio, or if I want to do like a cross dissolve between scenes. iMovie has everything that I have ever needed. What about you, Alexis?
That's exactly what I use too. I use iMovie. And then I will say too, for the non-Apple users, I had to edit like a show that I did on Zoom at the beginning of the pandemic that was supposed to happen IRL. And I had a PC at the time. I wasn't using my MacBook, but the YouTube editor, which is free, all you need is a Gmail email address. If you are an Android user, you can use the YouTube editor to do essentially everything that iMovie does. It's not as like user friendly or like intuitive, but you just, if you can spend 20 minutes figuring it out, you can do everything on there if you're not an Apple user.
That's excellent. Somebody asked, and this is actually really good because it's something that I have issues with all the time. How do you find it watching yourself over and over and over, or having to respond to yourself without being self-critical in what you think somebody else wants to see, I guess? Uh,
Yeah.
how do you make it easier? How do you get over that a little bit?
What do you think, Alexis?
Um, uh,
These are the
okay.
big questions.
I know. 'Cause it's so there's a reason they're kind of unanswerable or they haven't been answered yet.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard.
I
What do you think?
think a lot of actors that are home now are doing themselves the disservice of doing their tape 900 million times.
Yeah.
You probably got it right in your first one or second or third take
Yeah.
for everything, for the theater and for the TV film stuff. Lovely that, we're all at home and we sort of have more control about what we're putting out there, but do not be that person that puts yourself on tape for the one thing 80 times and then you're going back in your phone watching those 80 clips. Don't do that because what is happening is you're becoming overcritical. Um, and I think that and what this is what I'm hearing back from casting directors too and people is that sometimes a little bit of mess or a little bit of funk, a little bit of not perfection is actually good because these casting directors are sitting down and watching 500 tapes of people trying to get everything totally perfect. And like Andrew was saying, you want to stand out. Sometimes just not being totally friggin' perfect will help you stand out. So for me, I will put a cap on how many times I'm gonna put something on tape. Um, and again, I hate it because it's more money to spend, but I do have coaches that I reach out to, if I'm feeling particularly stuck on something or if, I'm auditioning for something that I don't think necessarily suits me so well,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to other people for help.
No, and I think that makes sense, especially when this is such a vulnerable place too, that the honesty that may start to slowly drip away after you're recording it, it's going to maybe start to feel a bit more like an edifice, that you're just going through the motions.
Totally.
Somebody else asked, when you're talking about iMovie or even YouTube Studio or anything like that, how much sort of editing, how much sort of, I don't want to say filtering, but how much should really be there? Or should it be as raw as it kind of is?
I go the route of minimal editing. I very much think that if you edit it, it's a it's a tricky thing, because if someone is watching it and feels very much like they are being manipulated in any way by your tape, I think that's a quick no. So I think the sort of editing it to make it feel seamless and professional looking and nice and pretty, even if you want, is all great. But the moment that I think the moment that you start to edit the performance itself, it can get a little tricky.
Yep. I agree with that 110%. If you're doing two scenes for something, yeah, have like a crossfade, have a fade to black, separate those moments, but don't put in noises of
Mm,
things. Don't don't like make it black and white because it's like gonna be a like
right.
retro whatever.
Yeah.
The thing that people have to remember, and this is the other thing too, it's like none of that editing, none of that like razzle dazzle is going to make you or the work look better. They're
Mhm.
going to know that you're pulling out bells and whistles, and like Andrew said, that kind of builds a little bit of distrust, or it's kind of like the other thing too, like with the slates, people, you have to understand the volume of tapes that these people are watching. You cannot give them an excuse to not watch your tape.
Totally. Totally. And I also think, um, I think that if someone watches your tape and thinks, "Wow, that was a really great edited video," that's their first takeaway. I think you've missed the point.
Mm.
Totally.
Mm.
And last one as we head out, um, Matthew was asked, because in the old days it was, you kind of knew once you graduated, like here are the new steps.
Yeah.
Pick up backstage and you audition. What about now, especially for our new graduates or for people who are thinking about work? Like, where are some of the maybe more unique ways to start getting your information out there?
Yeah, that's a really, I mean, I sort of uh had the classic the way of getting representation and getting jobs. I will say that I don't have a lot of experience in this field, but from what I've seen of recent graduates of the grad schools and whatever, what have you, is a lot of people are making digital content, whether that's like even like making lip syncs to the president's ridiculous briefings, or to putting
Become a
themselves
TikTok
on.
star, perhaps?
Exactly, things of that nature, which I think has often gotten a bad rap in the past.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, has often gotten a, oh well, they're not really an actor, they're a YouTube personality, which, like, is there's some truth to that, but it's also like, well, how else are actors supposed to get themselves out there?
Yeah.
You know, I think it's so amazing that this sort of digital wave of new stuff. So I think that's the best way to do it, is put yourself on film and put it on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of like Andrew, when I first graduated, at least from undergrad, I had the traditional route where I got an agent from my showcase. I was living in New York. They sent me out for everything. I was not at home, looking up what could I self-submit. But living in different parts of the country and having different representation, I have sort of had to learn how to not just rely on my team, but also like submit myself for stuff. And the biggest thing that I think all of you that are going to be graduating, you need to get an actor's access.
Yes.
Most agents and managers on either side, either coast, are submitting their own clients through that, but you do not have to have representation to self-submit on actors access. And you will see everything: theater, TV, film, commercial, voiceover, industrial, everything. And you can search geographically. So you can search, LA, New York, Atlanta. You can even Canadian stuff is on there.
Mhm.
So actors access is the first thing I would tell every new acting graduate to sign up for and get and to submit on there. You need to put your headshots, you make your resume on there. If you do have a reel, awesome. If not, like Andrew said, put yourself on tape doing stuff. And that's the easiest way to start submitting for work.
And locally, what about Stage Source? Do you know much about Stage Source?
Yeah. It's so funny. I've never done Stage Source. I know it's kind of pricey.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, this is kind of old school, but like it's funny because Andrew and I did not graduate from school that long ago. But when Andrew and I did graduate from school, doing mailings was still a thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And now that everything's digital, I'm that person. I will not go to Stage Source. I'll email the theater directly and be like, here are my materials. And I'm doing a tape for New Rep tomorrow. That stuff works.
Yeah.
Remember, you don't have to necessarily go down the traditional path, and especially if it's shelling out money. No, go on the website, find the info, send it along, be professional and stuff, but you don't necessarily have to do those things.
And I think that's really the most important thing for us to remember through all of this is, for thousands of years, theater was static, and it went from paper to different types of paper and different things. But it is changing so dramatically that it is a little bit of the Wild West now.
Yeah.
And especially actor access, correct?
Actors Access, yep.
Actors Access, yeah.
And so what I'm going to ask is for Alexis and Andrew, any of these things that you want to send me, I'll put in the YouTube, what we call the doobly-doo in the biz, just so you know. But I'll put that information in the box, and then everybody will have access to it as they come forward.
Right.
Okay. You two, this was amazing. Amazing. I really, really appreciate you doing this for us and for the students. And for those of you who came, you really picked up on an excellent conversation. And the best part is you have about 24 hours to work on all this stuff before everybody else does, before it's released to the public. So you got the first roll. So I expect to see some good TikToks tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's right. Bringing the self-tapes.
Andrew, thank you so much. Alexis, thank you so much. I'm doing it the wrong way again. I got to learn that. And we really thank you for your insight and everything that you're doing, not just for this evening, but also for the department. You're really helping our first year students and all of our students excel in a way that we haven't had in a very long time, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you, David. Always
thank
a pleasure.
you.
Thank you, Alexis.
Mwah, thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you. Have a great night. Be careful, especially those of you still in Rhode Island. It's pretty bad. So we'll talk soon. Okay.
All right.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye.